Okay, I want to reiterate that the topics that I enjoy are very broad. I like very different things that you'll see no interconnectedness in them, but they're very me. Like anime, love it. Anime and manga, absolutely love it. Pop culture, anything like that. But also, I study economics. It's something I'm very interested in. So, topics dealing with philosophy and anything dealing with social constructs, I really enjoy them. So, they will be highlighted in the videos that I create. So, there might be a little confusion about, oh, what's the next video? Even I don't know at times. I'm just kind of winging it. Okay, the topic I want to talk about is something I ended up learning in my History of Economic Thought course last semester, but it's really been on my mind a lot lately. It's Thorstein Veblen's, one of his theories of conspicuous consumption, which essentially is a theory that explains the social dynamic between increased consumption of goods and the social status gained from having a moral luxury good, which is very true today. This theory was posited in his theory of leisure class in 1899, but it's very, very forward thinking and very much in line with contemporary work and the contemporary construct of society. We see that in pop culture, and a lot of the social dynamics surrounding wealth are you have to consume. You have to get the biggest, brightest, the next big thing, which I feel like most people fall into that trap. Oh, I want the new iPhone. I want the new Samsung. I want that new shirt. I want the new Gucci belt. I want the new Louis V. I want the new watch. It's a never-ending cycle of consumption. And there is a different social dynamic that is created out of that, because when you see someone with that wealth, you initially think more highly of them. If you see someone with a Richard Mille or a Rolex, you're like, oh, they must be. You already internally put them on this pedestal, and that's the social recognition and that's the social status gain from consuming more luxury goods. And that's a lot of what Veblen talks about. I think his insight is very useful to talk about anything dealing with that kind of social dynamic, because it really demonstrates how wealth is a big indicator of how you're perceived socially. And I think these ideas go into a further thought process of comfortability, because when you have all the things you need to survive, your thinking becomes a lot more complex and creative, and it's not good enough just to have the basic necessities. Once you have food, shelter, and water, your thinking goes outward, because it's hard to think outside yourself when you're struggling in your day-to-day trying to gather these resources. That's why I think for people that are extremely poor, they're not outward thinking. They're only thinking about their internalized issues, which makes complete sense, because those three dynamics are always in a constant struggle. They're not getting what they need. And it's hard to really think outside of yourself when you don't know what's going to happen your next day. But those who do have those resources, they now have the choice. Do I want a bigger home? Do I want to flaunt my wealth? What kind of social prestige is gained from that? And practically, it doesn't make any sense, because if you have all these resources to survive, you don't need a larger home. You don't need a bigger couch. You don't need a more comfortable rug. You don't need better carpet. You don't need to replace your hardwood floors. But I believe that this level of comfortability creates this idea of I want to flaunt my wealth in some kind of way. I want things to be more comfortable. I want more, 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 more. And I think within the US, the ideas of continuing to consume are pushed a lot. And I think the biggest thing that does that is advertising. It the way I explained it to my professor is it's almost like a artificial demand. They create this out of thin air. Because otherwise you would have never even wanted this good. You would have never even knew about it. Your consumption would have been limited by your own field of view. You would have never even knew you wanted this. Like you say you get an advertisement for a new bike. You probably weren't even thinking about getting a new bike. But now that you saw that ad, you can't stop thinking about it. And it also ties into the idea of if you see something enough, you're just thinking, oh, I might as well get it. I am definitely victim of that. I stopped playing this one game on my phone for a long time. I saw an ad for it 5 times. I told myself, if I see this ad one more time, I'm downloading it again. And I can definitely tell you I am addicted to that game. But it ties into so many different things. And I think everyone should be aware that in a country like the US, consumption is something that is pushed towards you. They want you to consume. And when I say they, I mean the businesses, the companies that produce these goods, because essentially everything is about profits. But also, I want to make it very apparent that it's not just companies and businesses. I think there's a larger issue between people. Like in pop culture, there are rappers or businessmen that flaunt their wealth, and your attitude towards the job that you're doing shifts dramatically because these people are getting paid much more than you, and it really puts into question the work that you're doing. A lot of people think that an office job is a lot more prestigious than doing construction, which internally I do as well, because I look at manual labor as this rugged, rough, less knowledgeable, less intelligent kind of work, just internally based off my own personal experiences. And an office job just seems more mentally demanding. But to each individual, there's no difference in how hard they're working. The office job is probably working less, realistically, just based off the dynamics in reality. But the construction person, let's say all things are equal. They're working just as hard as each other, and working and making the same amount. But socially, the positions are viewed completely different. Some people would say, oh, I would never work construction. But the idea of an office job would be more appealing. It's easier to tell people that you work in an office job than to say, oh, I do construction. That's a big thing. I think that it's a westernized thing, and the US is kind of the big push to consumption because it makes up a lot of our GDP. So the need for consumption is very much there. And I think Veblen's ideas ring true today, but even much further back then, because acquiring goods and living in a more luxury has been a staple for status and power. There's always someone ruling the pack and having more than everyone else. Think about the mansion on the hill, or some kind of king having this gold, this jewelry, the luxurious robes, different animal furs, all those things. I just want that to be in your mind and that to be thought of when you're making a purchase. It's you almost have to like rewire your brain into thinking, do I need this, or am I just falling under that trap of consumption? Do I really want this, or am I thinking about the social benefit and the social status I gain from now having it? You don't need a watch, you don't need a chain, but does that social status that you gain from it outweigh the financial burden that comes from you buying it? Yeah, I think it's a good question to ask yourself. And hopefully it can stop you from making some kind of outrageous purchase. I want to say thank you for listening to me talk about things. Actually, I'm not too unqualified to talk about this stuff because I do study economics. Granted, I'm not a professor or anything like that, so I can't say this is something I'm have no right to talk about or whatnot. So I'm kind of qualified a little bit, not that much, but I'm getting there. So thank you for watching, and I'll be uploading another video sooner than later. Thank you.